Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmritam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. So today we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th Canto, Chapter 16, which is the Kaliya pastime. We're reading text 27, and we're also again speaking a little bit about Madhvacharya and Ramanujacharya. So Ramanujacharya's disappearance day, according to the calendars, is today. So we celebrate the life of Ramanujacharya. And so here's the verse. Tam nartam udyatam avikshata data diya Gandharva Siddha Muni Charana Deva Vadvaha Pritya Mridhanga Panavanaka Vadyakita Pushpo Pahara Nutibi Sahasro Pasedu. Seeing the Lord dancing his servants in the heavenly planets, the Gandharvas, Siddhas, sages, Charanas, and the wives of the demigods immediately arrived there. With great pleasure, they began accompanying the Lord's dancing by playing drums, such as mridangas, panavas, and anakas. They also made offerings of songs, flowers, and prayers. Purport. When the demigods and other residents of the higher planetary systems become aware that Lord Shri Krishna was personally putting on a wonderful demonstration of the art of dancing, they immediately came to offer their services. Dancing became more enjoyable and beautiful to watch when it's accompanied by expert drum playing, singing, and chanting of prayers. The artistic atmosphere was also enhanced by the showering of multitude of flowers upon Lord Shri Krishna, who was blissfully engaged in dancing upon the hoods of Kaliya serpent. Detachment smite yasmin duskaram sukaram bhavet vismite viparitam shat Shri Chaitanya namamitam. Hare Krishna. So yesterday we also we read about dancing. If you remember, there's a section about the purport was talking about bowing down, how Krishna was making Kaliya bow down, and this had the effect of his consciousness. And so similarly, Brahmananda asked, what if I don't feel like bowing down? And Prabhupada said, bow down and then you'll feel like it. And so we brought in this point that dancing for Krishna, as Sanat Goswami writes in the Brihad Bhagavatam Rita, he writes that dancing for Krishna in the beginning is done as a matter of duty, not out of ecstasy, as a sadhana, as a matter of duty. And then if you do it, just like if you bow for Krishna, if you dance for Krishna, then you'll begin to feel like it. You'll feel like dancing for Krishna. And so we have this Tukaram, great exalted devotee of the Lord. And he describes that if you lie down and chant Krishna's name, Krishna will come and he will sit right next to you. And if you sit down and sing Krishna's name, Krishna will come stand right next to you. And if you stand and sing Krishna's name, Krishna will dance for you or dance in ecstasy. And if you sing the holy name while dancing, then Krishna will come and embrace you. So there's this, you hear Prabhupada is speaking a lot, chanting and dancing. So this this is a very important element. Just like we are not eating, we're not yogis just eating plain, roots and leaves that we're finding in the forest. We're offering food cooked in ghee. We're offering food with spices. Having something that is engaging our senses is allowed because we offer to Krishna. And so engaging the body, the mind, in its, which is actually underneath the soul. The soul is by nature, it wants to dance for Krishna. But even in the body may have a desire to express, to have some activity. So this desire to express itself, it is satisfied when we could come and dance for Krishna. Otherwise, we may have the tendency, we want to go to some other place and dance, go to some nightclub and dance. But if we can dance for Krishna, then that desire becomes satisfied. As Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he explains that the conditioned soul, that we don't have a very deep taste for the holy name. And so similarly, when a cow is not feeling well, and he has no deep hunger, what do you give the cow? Does anybody know what he said? You give the cow something? What did he give? Something called mustard cake. If you look, you can type mustard cake on Google, and it doesn't look very appealing for a human. Some green slabs of pressed dry mustard or something like that. But for the cow, it's very delicious. And you add a little bit of mustard cake, and it incites his appetite. And so Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that in general, the soul has not much of a taste for the holy name. If we find it's easy to sit in kirtan, but to do japa, we have to have a little bit more determination. That takes time of a cultivation to develop some attachment and determination, or at least we do it because we know it's good for us. But we may be eager and excited to join a beautiful kirtan. What to speak of hearing a very musically enticing kirtan. And so Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he says that we have this music, the musical side of kirtan, because it's like the what is it? The mustard cake. It entices the soul to put some attention to the holy name. So sometimes you hear this discussion like you have one letter, Srila Prabhupada, where he's saying like, don't do harmonium during the Mangalarti. And then you have another instruction where Prabhupada is having he's training an international band where they have 2 harmoniums and 6 mridangas and 12 kartals and sitar and vinay and all these instruments. And so on one side, it seems like he's saying, you just mridanga kartals, nothing else. And the other side, he has this very ornate band. So this is the mustard cake principle. Mustard cake principle is whatever will actually entice our appetite to hear and focus on the holy name. Perhaps for a simple brahmachari in India or some other place, he's in a temple, he doesn't need sitar and vinay and saxophone at 4:30 a.m. That may be his situation may be that he can focus on the holy name and in that simple setting easily. But if you were to go to Times Square, if you were to rent a theater at Times Square and have a concert, and you only have mridanga and kartals, versus you have a full entourage of a concert, you'll probably be able to capture people's attention, and then they will give attention to the holy name if you have this mustard cake, this this pulling, appetizing, this musicality that is there. So in different circumstances, there's different approaches, but the idea is to create some attraction to the holy name. And so similarly, to engage ourselves in getting off the, like we may come to see Krishna, we think he is standing there like a stone, and so then we become like a stone, just standing there. But actually Krishna is here. If we hear this pastime, actually Krishna he's dancing, he's engaging in such wonderful pastimes. Only our consciousness becomes very stone-like. So he's there dancing. And therefore, when the devotees see Krishna is dancing, they try to accompany him. They try to serve him in various ways. It says playing mridangas, panavas, anakas, offering songs, flowers, and prayers. And so it's a little bit about wonderful art of dancing for Krishna. So here, special request, as mentioned, we will hear a little bit about Madhvacharya. So Madhvacharya, he composed this book called Mayavada Shatadushani, 100 Refutations of Mayavada Fallacy, are also called Sri Tattva Muktavali, the Pearl Necklace of Truths. And so Madhvacharya, as today's Ramanujacharya also appear and say, these personalities came to establish in the scholarly, those who are holding the flag of education, those who are in the position of power of representing what it meant to be intelligent, what it meant to be the leaders of debate. Those were all at that time being held. Those flags were being held by those who say God has no form, God has no personality, God has no pastime, God has no abode, God has no relationships, neither do you. It's all just absolute oneness, as we discussed. 0, 1, 2, and then finally 1 and 2. It is 2,600 years of history. We started with Buddha. He brought it to Shunyata, 0. He just restarted, refreshed everything. It needed not a reformation, but a complete clean out. And then Shankaracharya, oneness. He brought the principle of Atma and brought it back into the Vedic fold, back and bringing in the ashrams and varnas and all these different elements. And then Madhvacharya, 2, strict dualist, and he's saying you're avoiding all this sacred literature that says that there is God and God is different from you. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he brought it together with this Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, where all the aspects of oneness that are expressed in the Vedas are not ignored, but also the primary aspect of the soul being distinct from the Lord is also expressed. So Sri Madhvacharya, let's see what he says here. So some of the points, one of the points is you have terms like there's called what do they call it? The Mahavakya, the great saying. The Mahavakya of Shankaracharya is Tat Tvam Asi. You are that. Tat, that. You just put an H there, and then you see what word it is in English. T-A-T becomes T-H-A-T. That. You are that. You are that supreme. Tattvam, you, asi. So there are 3 words. What do you think is the most difficult word in that stanza? The word that needs the most clarification.
The last word.
R, yes. What is this R? And so in Vedic literatures, you have many analogies that are given. Like it will say, this young Brahmana is a blazing fire. Or they'll even say, the woman's breasts were Mount Meru. But was it, that her breasts were actually mountains? Or the young Brahmana was a fire? Sometimes these are, so we see, 1 second. Let's see, Tattvam Asi. So this is called nominative case, Prathama Vibhakti. You can't say it is possessive case, Sasti, which means you have changed the actual meaning of Tattvam Asi. This is just like the Brahmana, he is sharing some qualities similar, like the intensity of this fire. Or so there's these analogies means there's some quality that is shared there that is being referred to. But he says the innumerable waves splash in the great ocean, the same way countless spirit souls exist within the supreme Brahman. How can a single wave become the ocean? Oh, individual spirit soul, how do you think you will become the supreme Brahman? So there's another big point that in this book that is given is that you have, in Sanskrit, you have primary meanings of words, and then you have secondary meanings of words. And in the primary meaning of a word, you like say you have a sentence like Adi Purusha gives people delicious prasadam. And so you have all these words there that when you hear that sentence, it makes sense. And so you don't need to examine one of the words and then retranslate it into some other use of the words. Like the word prasadam, it's a little easier to deal with in Sanskrit, some of these ideas. But in English, sometimes we have words that are used that have dual meanings. And if you have a sentence that makes sense in its primary meaning, then it is not reasonable to reject the primary meaning and choose a secondary meaning of that word. Does everyone follow? So here's some examples. Let's see, some Madhvacharya gives some examples. Kumbhakadga Danur Bhanna Pravishanti. Pravishanti means enter. Kumbhakadga Danur Bhanna, which means pitchers, swords and bows and arrows enter. So this is a sentence where if you take each word and you just take the basic meaning of those words, the primary meanings of those words, then the sentence doesn't make sense. And so because it doesn't make sense, then you re-examine and you say, okay, how are these words? What are other renditions of these words? How are they used in different ways? And so you take the other meanings and it actually means soldiers with shields and swords and pitchers entered. Or there's another word, the word putra. What does the word putra mean? Question for somebody there.
Son.
Son. And then what is the root of the word putra? Putrayate.
Putra, hell, right? Putra means hell or something.
Yeah, pu means hell, and tra, mantra. What is this? Trayate. Trayate mahato bayat. Will save. Trayate mahato bayat. Will save, protect. Chatra, kshatriya. So this tra means to protect. We heard mantra, to deliver, protect. And so putra means one who saves from hell. Now, but what if you're using the word putra and there is no child there? There is no, it has nothing, no context of a father and a parent. So it does, in that sense, this word putra it does not mean a child, does not mean the son of. It means one who saves, one who protects. Like the guru could be considered putra, one who saves from the sufferings of karma in hell. So these are secondary meanings where the general common usage is not making sense. So what Shankaracharya did is, in order to avoid personalism, he would translate the Vedic literatures, and in general, most of it was very clear. But as soon as Krishna popped his face, his beautiful face, and as soon as Lord Vishnu, as soon as any of the concepts of personality popped their face into the literature, he would carefully, and his Lord Shiva, with practically infinite intelligence, he is empowered by Lord Krishna to carry out this mission, because his mission was to present a depersonalized Vedic literature that would be attractive to the heavily Buddhist influenced audience of India at the time. And so whenever there was a concept of personalism, he would avoid that by rejecting the primary, the most common, most clear form of the use of those words, and retranslating using the grammatical complexity of Sanskrit to look at words in various ways that will avoid addressing that there's a supreme person. Does everybody follow that? Any questions? So, for example, here are some examples of where you would take, again, secondary meanings. Like there's a sentence, Ayu Kritam. Ayu Kritam. Ayu means life, long life, and Kritam means ghee. And so if you take it literally, it just says long life is ghee. And that just sentence doesn't make any sense. But if you take secondary meanings and you look at how the grammar, that sentence can be translated as eating foods with ghee is good for a long life. And so he challenges the followers of Shankaracharya, saying, why are you rejecting, why are you using all this kind of grammatical gymnastics to avoid the personalism that is described in Upanishads, in the Vedas, in all these different literatures? Why are you using, except for Bhagavatam, Shankaracharya never did a commentary in Bhagavatam, because Bhagavatam is so clear. You can't argue impersonalism from the Bhagavatam. So why are you using all this jugglery to avoid personalism? This is not a clear and honest and authentic presentation. Okay, so that is two of the primary points in this book, Mayavada Shatadushani. There's many more. If you just Google 100 refutations of Mayavada philosophy, you can read it all. It's probably about, I don't know, maybe less than 20 pages, or it's a web page, so it's hard to guess, but it's not that long. Maybe it's like as he says, it's along with it's of 119 verses. It's like you're reading a couple chapters of Bhagavad Gita without the purports. So Ramanujacharya ki jai. The Ramanujacharya, he, as some of us know, he had his anniversary, his 1,000-year anniversary, just a few years ago. And so, of course, today is his disappearance day. Ramanujacharya, he had his hero, his guru that he that he aspired to. Actually, he never got to meet in person, but he was like his hero was Yamunacharya. You might remember Prabhupada. He commonly quoted a verse from Yamunacharya. Whenever I think of sex life, I spite at the thought of it. This is Yamunacharya. His Prabhupada's pronunciation. He said spite, but he meant spit. So this is, and we'll get into that. Well, what was the context of that? So Yamunacharya, when he was 5 years old, he was studying in the Gurukul, and there was a court pundit. There was a king who had a very powerful scholar named Kohala. And this Kohala, he would challenge everyone to debate. And whoever had lost the debate, which would be everyone, would have to pay him yearly taxes to the king's court pundit, who was very strong and very proud. And so this king's court pundit, his student, came to the school of Yamunacharya and said, hey, tell your stupid teacher he needs to pay his taxes. Otherwise, he may go to jail or be subject to death. He owes to his dues. It's like a mafia debaters, scholars. And so this young child, he said, you tell the king, bring a palanquin, and I will defeat your court pundit. And he huffed and puffed and ran out of there. And he went back and he told the king and the court. And so they did. They sent a palanquin to pick up this child who was going to debate the great, great scholar. Can you imagine like you got Srinam. Srinam is what? He's probably like 8. Imagine, some of the devotees at Nanda Murari, Nanda Bihari. How old's your daughter? She's 9, 10.
She's 9.
9. Okay. Who's 5? Any 5-year-olds that are often at the Bhakti Center?
No, Shinam is the youngest. He's probably he's 8.
Okay, so we're gonna send your daughter to NYU, and she's going to debate the professors there. Carry her in a palanquin. So imagine this 5-year-old boy comes, and the queen, as soon as they see this boy, the queen, she knows, oh my God, this boy is special. He is going to win this debate. And so she does this kind of daring gamble. She says, if this kid doesn't win, I will become my maid's maid. And the king said, oh, this boy? He said, if this kid wins, I will give him half my kingdom. And so they started the Brahman, as soon as he saw the boy, he started to laugh. He said, this little child is going to defeat me. And the boy said, well, then by that logic, a buffalo would. Very large buffalo. And so they started debating. And as in debates, they start off with some basic Sanskrit grammar. They started debating those things, and they started debating complex things, and it was going on and on and on and on. And so at the very end, it did not seem to stop. This Yamunacharya, he said, okay, I want you to refute these statements. I want you to present. Now, you can't, in the courthouse of the king, you can't insult the king. You may be subject to death. Unless you're the jester, like Srila Prabhupada, he was talking about humor. he was talking about Srimati Radharani's special relationship with Krishna. And he gave this example of a famous court jester named Gopal Ban. And so the Gopal Ban, he asked the king, or the king asked him, oh Gopal, what's the difference between you and an ass? And Gopal, he went and he counted the distance between, he said, oh, about 3 feet. He's basically calling the king an ass. What's the difference? He said, oh, 3 feet. And so Prabhupada told this joke, some Gopal Ban jokes. And so he may have that relationship where he can insult the king, but nobody else can. Like Radharani may have a special relationship. The others don't have that intimacy. And so he said, I want you to refute this statement that this king's wife is not barren. That the king's wife is chaste. Refute that. And the king, he is not sinful. Refute that. Tell us how she is barren. Tell us how she is unchaste. And tell us how he is sinful. And the Kohala was flabbergasted. He was like, this can't be done. This is a crazy request. There's you're just speaking nonsense. Okay, you refute it then. There's no refutation of this. And so first he said, well, in the Manu Samhita, there is one small line that says a woman with only one child can still be called barren. I don't know what context of this, but so therefore he satisfied that first question. And then he said, well, you're saying his wife is unchaste? They said, yes. The king's wife is unchaste because the king, he is a great representative of all the demigods, especially Indra, Chandra, 7 primary gods that he is representing. And so she is married to 7 men. All these were meant to be insults or great glorifications. And the king is sinful? Yes. Of course, he is completely pious. But we are now in Kali Yuga. And it is said that the leader takes 1/6 of the sin of those who he leads. And so because we're in Kali Yuga, there is some sin. And so he is carrying 1/6 of the sin of those who he's leading. And so then Yamunacharya, he was given half of the kingdom, and he lived a royal life, having being in this royal position. And in his royal position, this 5-year-old child eventually completely, utterly, totally forgot about his spiritual life. Completely abandoned his spiritual life. It was as one devotee was saying, Maya is not just we had one devotee here is saying Maya is not just like some thing that, okay, you're conditioned by you. It's actually a real thing where the soul becomes covered and can forget. We can become illusion. But it's not just some of the conditionings of this world, and we can actually like we have all we have forgotten our most supreme friend completely. And so there was his uncle. He had somebody in his family named Nathamuni, and Nathamuni, he felt this compassion that he was such a young when he was young, he had such great devotion and he had such great clarity, but now he's just enjoying this world, so he's forgotten about his spiritual life. So I must do something to help him. So he would go to the palace and he would go to the kitchen and meet the cook, and he would bring this a special type of spinach called tudavalai. This is a type of spinach that increases your sattva guna. And he would drop off this nice, fresh tudavalai spinach every single day. This was his strategic plan. And then he decided one day he will not bring it. And so one day he didn't bring it. And the king said, where's my spinach? And also the spinach is having a sattvic effect on his consciousness. He said, where's my spinach? He said, well, this one brahmana, he brings it for you daily. He said, how much does he charge? He said, he doesn't charge anything. He does it for his love for you. I want to meet this person. And so the next day, Natamuni arrived, and the Yamunacharya, the king, invited him to come. He said, actually, if you remember, I'm your uncle, and there is a great treasure that your family has in its inheritance, and this treasure is sitting on an island that's surrounded by rivers, and it's protected by a demon that comes every 6 months. And I want you to come and get this treasure. He said, okay, I will bring my army. We'll go with a whole entourage. He said, no. You must come alone. Otherwise, it could be disturbed. You will be safe. We'll go together, and we can go. And so the king and Natamuni, they went to Sri Rangam, which is surrounded by rivers. And then there is a demon who comes to see the great treasure of Sri Rangam, Sri Ranganath, Lord Vishnu, who comes to see the Lord, and his name is Vibhishan, the brother of Ravana, the great devotee. He comes to see the deity every 6 months. And so he brought him into the temple, and he revealed the deity, the beautiful deity of Sri Ranganath. And the king's heart broke open, and he said, this is my treasure. And he again revived his spiritual life. And then later on, as he became a great teacher, Yamunacharya always wanted to meet him. And finally, when he had a chance, right before Ramanujacharya got to meet Yamunacharya, Yamunacharya had left this world, and he had 3 fingers bent down. I don't know if he was doing the Hawaiian shaka, or maybe like this, or I don't know. But he had 3 fingers bent down, and he said, was his hand always? Ramanujacharya said, was his hand always like this? With the 3 fingers bent down? He said, no, it's just like this at the time of its departure. And so Ramanujacharya, he made a proclamation. I will spread the glories of bhakti throughout the land, and refute and defeat the impersonalism that is hampering the devotion of the people. And one of those fingers began to open up. I will make a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra that gives the clear conception. And this commentary was known as Sri Bhashya. And again, the next finger began to open up. And I will glorify the author of Vishnu Puran, Parashara Muni, the father of Veda Vyas, by naming one disciple, Parashara. And that was Ramanujacharya's main disciple, Parashara Bhat. And then the last finger opened up. So this was the hero of Ramanujacharya. Ramanujacharya has many pastimes himself. Actually, I want to, here's one pastime. Ramanujacharya had he said he was studying the scripture, and he had some doubt. and he had 6 doubts, and he went to the deity. This is let's see, what deity did he go? Shri Varadaraj. He went to the deity Varadaraj. He asked his great friend Kanchipurna. He asked him to please pray to the deity to answer these 6 questions. But he didn't give the questions to the devotee. He said, just please answer these 6 questions. Now, Srila Prabhupada writes in the 10th canto, 1st chapter, he writes this very powerful purport. You have devotees like Tamal Krishna Maharaj, who left their body in a car accident. You have devotees who not, left their body. Seemingly, we may hope to die in a very romantic way, where we're chanting at the very last moment and all the devotees are surrounding us and chanting. And so Prabhupada writes in this purport, instead of allowing one to forget one's real position, Krishna can revive one's original identity at the time of death, even though the mind may be flickering. Although the mind may work imperfectly at the time of death, Krishna gives a devotee shelter at his lotus feet. Therefore, when a devotee gives up his body, his mind does not take him to another body. So one may have these doubts regarding, those who die in various circumstances, coma, so many different ways. And so Ramanujacharya had these 6 questions. He didn't say what the questions were, but this devotee the next day approached him and said, your questions were answered. And these questions were answered. He gave 6 verses. He said, I don't know what the questions were, but the Lord has provided me 6 answers to your questions. First, I am the Supreme Brahman, the cause of material nature, from which this universe has come into being. 2, the separate existence of the Jiva and the Supreme Lord is an eternal truth. 3, surrendering to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord is the only true path for those who desire liberation. 4, devotees will certainly be liberated, even if by chance they fail to remember me at the time of death. 5th, as soon as my devotee gives up his present body, I bring them to my supreme abode. 6, you should immediately take shelter of Mahatma Mahapurna, the reservoir of all good qualities. And so this ties into a very nice verse from the Varaha Purana. So this is, please hear this verse. Yadivatadi doshena mad bhaktamam na chayet smaret aham smarami mad bhakta nayam paramam gatim. If my devotee is unable to remember me at the time of death because of disturbance felt within the body at that time, then I shall remember my devotee and I will take him back to my supreme abode. So if my devotee is unable to remember me because of the disturbance in the body, then I will remember him and I will bring him back. So I see we're a little short on time. I have more Ramanujacharya. His brother, there's some pastimes of his brother Govinda also. Like he later became a great devotee. One time he saw his brother was shoving his finger in a cobra's mouth. He's asking, what are you doing to that snake? What? And the snake was writhing in pain. I know it is a snake. It is a very hostile creature. But why are you torturing it in this way? And Govinda, he said, well, the snake had a thorn in the back of his mouth. And besides, he could kill you. But he said the snake had a thorn in the back of his mouth. So I was trying to pull it out. There's some pastimes of Govinda. Any questions? Anything? Or conscious going to blow?
I want to appreciate the shloka that you gave, that if there's a bodily disturbance that is making it difficult for us to remember Krishna, at a crucial moment, then Krishna will remember us. That's a very hope-giving shloka. Thank you, Nityananda Chandra. I don't see Adi, so I guess the darshan is taking place. So we're not able to see Krishna, but Krishna is seeing us. I'm applying to the darshan. Okay, great class, Nityananda Chandra Prabhu. Thank you for highlighting our sampradaya so nicely. Any questions, reflections?
There's a lot of nice pastimes. The pastime of the wrestler.
The wrestler?
Yeah, do you want to hear the pastime of the wrestler?
I see Bhima Prabhu's camera started shaking when you said wrestler.
Oh, yeah.
I bet he's curious about that story. Let's hear it.
Okay, so they had, in South India, they have many festivals that are like Rath Yatra, nice processions where they take the deities out on chariots and processions. And so everybody was attending these, wonderful, beautiful festival. And they noticed this man, this very stout man, and he was holding an umbrella over a very beautiful woman. And the entire time of the festival, and the festival was so amazing, and he was completely absorbed, just staring at this woman, completely absorbed, just holding the umbrella and staring at her. Everybody, this is quite odd. I imagine someone comes to Thursday night kirtan, and the whole time they have their back towards Krishna, and they just have an umbrella, and they're staring at this lady. And so they mentioned this to Ramanuja, and he said, "Okay, bring the man here. Invite him to come speak with me." And he said, "I see that you seem to be very entranced by this woman. Can you tell me something about it?" He said, "Yes, I've never seen eyes so beautiful." And actually, this woman, she was not even his wife. He was just very attached to her, and he was following her, and she was actually a devotee. But she was, as Prabhupada writes in purport of Srimad Bhagavatam, she was a prostitute. And he says sometimes devotees are in this situation by trick of chance. And so this woman had kind of a unfortunate life situation, but she was a devotee by nature. And he was very attached to her. He said, so Ramanuja said, if I could show you eyes more beautiful, would you renounce this attachment? And so he brought him to the deity of Sri Ranganath. And we saw the eyes of the Lord. He immediately fell in love with the Lord. And then he became a devotee. He became a very nice devotee. And then that woman began to like him because now he's a devotee. And so they got married. And being a wrestler, he's considered low caste. Being a prostitute, she's considered low caste. And so some caste-conscious disciples were upset. And they saw that Ramanuja was one time, he was walking and he was holding hands with the wrestler. You see in India, you see men holding hands, holding pinkies together, walking down the street. This in just friendship. And so they were criticizing, oh, how can he dare touch the Charya's hand? He is low caste. How can he do that? And so Ramanuja came to know of this. And so he decided, let's teach everybody something. And so while all the brahmanas went to bathe, he went and like one brahmana, he hung his dhoti this place. He took the other dhoti, he would switch all the dhotis in different places. The lungis, he switched them around. He ripped one. And so they all started fighting. Hey, that's my dhoti. That's my dhoti. You're taking my dhoti. And they're all fighting over their, insignificant cloth. And then later he gathered them. And he said, oh, I want to show you how these grihastas, this wrestler and his wife, how fallen they are, how materialistic they are. I just want to show you this. So I will call the husband here, and while he was gone from home, you go into his house and steal the wife's jewelry. Steal the wife's jewelry, and then I will send him back, and you'll see how upset he will become, how how blinded with anger he will become, how ignorant he will become. And so he called the wrestler, and he spoke with him. And then so the wife was home, and they saw, oh, she is resting. She is resting. And so they snuck in the house, and they started to take off the jewelry. While she was resting, they started to take off her jewelry, her gold bangles, her earring. And then while sleeping, she turned to the other side. And they got frightened. So they all ran, left, and they ran home, and they went by the window, and they sent the wrestler home. And so then they were spying let's see what happens. And so while they were there, they were spying. And so the wrestler came home, and they said, oh, you only have jewelry on one side. He said, yes, some brahmacharis came, some sannyasis came, and I think they're struggling for money. So they're, taking this jewelry. And so I turned to the other side so they would take the other side. And I think and then he got angry. He said, you think you're the doer? You should have stayed still so they can take all the jewelry. Why'd you move? You scared them. And they saw, how unattached they were and how they just wanted to serve. They must be very struggling at the ashram, And so they went back, and they understood the lesson. So this is a Ramanuja's two disciples, a wrestler.
Thank you. Thank you, Nityananda Chandra Prabhu. I was picturing Gaura Sharan.
Yeah, me too.
All right, this is it, dear devotees. We're over time. Nityananda Chandra Prabhu, thank you. It was a wonderful 2-day retreat, Srimad Bhagavatam class retreat. We love you. Nityananda Chandra, thank you for highlighting our sampradaya. We feel that we have a very solid backup with devotees like Ramanujacharya, Madhavacharya. Nice. Have a wonderful day, dear devotees. Tomorrow is Ekadashi, so prepare for that. Nothing in, nothing out. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Love you all. Hari Hari Bol.